Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Heather with the Junk You Should Know show. So funny. I love live. It's awesome. Our fabulous guest has been so generous. He has just given a talk and elbowed his way out of the room and is just getting set up as we're waiting. So as you check in, please give a big hello. Give us a heart, thumbs up. I want to know that you're there, and do ask some questions today because this is a really, really great topic. And I am very, very excited to have James with us today. A couple of items. Number one, we have a sponsor for the show, and the sponsor, hi, whoever just checked in, sponsor is the Change Cave. Hi, Chris. Sponsors the Change Cave, and the Change Cave is launching March 15th. I'm so excited. And here's the coolest part is that, yes, we are chatting with James today, but he has also very graciously accepted to give one of the presentations for the Change Cave. And so I am super excited for that. It just makes it even that much more valuable. And the Change Cave, as I said, launches March 15th. And what it is an online membership program. And it comes with a feisty, interactive Facebook group of like-minded wellness warriors. And we come in all shapes and sizes. There are going to be people who are just starting out on their wellness journey. There are people who are going to be a little further along, but we are all going to help each other. And so if you are interested, I'm going to put below in the links the registration link to the waiting page because we are not up and registered yet. And you can come and participate in our mindset classes in the 12 module online learning institute, in the weekly emails. There is great and abundant information, but it is all in chewable, digestible pieces and very absorbable. And I am so excited. I've been working really hard on this program, and I'm looking forward to delivering it to you. So that's who's sponsoring the Junk You Should Know show. So James looks like he just logged off for a minute, so I'm going to buy him some time. And I know he's just working to get set up. And I hope everybody is doing good on this Friday. I'm very excited. It's Friday. And this is the, oh my goodness, maybe the 6th or 7th Junk You Should Know show, which I'm super stoked about. And look at this cool thing that I just found out. Okay, so first I can show my name, which is awesome. But look, I'm going to be able to show you little details about James's program. So his program is going to be called The Brain. It's not going to be called, it is called The Brain in Mind. And this is his website, Brain by Design, to get a hold of James. And at the end of the show today, we are going to be doing some awesome gifts from James. And so listen through to the end. You can see the text number there. Actually, I guess you don't have to listen through to the end. You have to listen through to the end if you want to know what those are. But if you want to just like get the surprise bag of tricks, go ahead and text that number. He's going to be sending out a couple of really great gifts, usable, practical tools at the end of our show today. So I am just going to check in with Mr. James, and let me just hide that. Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to text him, make sure everything's okay. He was on there for a minute. And hold on, everybody. Okay. I'm going to have to start singing or dancing if he doesn't show up. And none of you want to see that. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction for James, and look at how cute his hair is. Wait till you see how cute his hair is. He's coming. Hold on, everybody. I'm adding him here. Hold on. There we go. And we're going to do a split screen. There he is. Yay! I'm good. How are you?
Good. Doing well.
Good.
Apologies for the technical difficulties.
Oh gosh, no worries. I did a whole podcast in the dark the other day. They couldn't see me at all. Yeah. And it was a live first and then a podcast. So the podcast part was fine, but the live, it was like dark screen. I couldn't get the light to work. And so it was quite funny. So technical difficulties are very fun. Well, welcome, James. As I say, as I started to, I mean, you and I know each other, but I started going through your CV and I started getting a little bit more and more nervous, and also so grateful that you have given us a little
So
piece of
kind.
your time,
Thank
because
you.
you have quite the background. And do you mind if I just kind of share a little bit about that background
Sure.
with our folks? Okay,
Yeah,
so
no problem.
James went to Columbia University. He did psychology there. And after graduating, I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about that. But our friend James here has been published in the New York Times, in the Harvard Law Review, or Harvard Review rather, and in LinkedIn stuff, and Fast Company, and all sorts of things. He's also done a TEDx talk, which is like, I actually dream about those. That is such a cool honor to have been able to do that. And you know, when I asked him about it, he's like, yeah, it's no, not. He's very humble. So he's got quite a background, and we're going to talk a lot about his kind of how he's taking the science of psychology and he's making it practical and applicable to us in our everyday lives. And I'm so excited to hear the content that you've got for us today. So tell me a little bit. What I want to know first, James, first of all, welcome. But what I want to know, you're welcome. What I want to know first is, can you tell us, can you fill in that little gap that I mentioned there about the time between Columbia and where you're at now? You spent some time in another country for a while, and you started a company called Think Unlimited there, correct?
That's right.
Okay,
It
so
was a nonprofit organization.
awesome. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that was about?
Yeah, so we actually, and I don't know how much you know of this story, Heather, but we actually we were in the Middle East. We were in the country of Jordan.
Okay.
And we went there originally as Peace Corps volunteers. So we were, both my wife and I, hungry for an international experience, really wanting, you know, our lives were becoming pretty predictable. I was basically grooming myself to become an academic and become a researcher. And I don't know, we wanted something different. We were, you know, in some ways we were
Yeah.
young and idealistic and without kids and all those things, of course, too. But so we ended up applying to Peace Corps, got in, and of course, you don't know where you're going to go until they send you. And so we were placed in Jordan and had amazing experience as Peace Corps volunteers, and built a program while we were volunteers that then grew up into, we came back after our 2-year service, founded an organization, and then went back and built that out for 4 more years.
Oh my goodness. And that's the Think Unlimited, correct?
That was Think Unlimited. You got it.
Okay. And so define what was the business exactly?
So we were working in high schools and universities. We built a whole in-house curriculum for both settings,
Oh, wow.
teaching, basically taking the science around creativity. You know, creativity is this elusive thing. Innovation is something we all supposedly value. But getting there, like getting those dynamics right, you know, and even teaching it, how do you build those skill sets and mindsets
Yeah.
of risk taking and stepping out to build something in the world? Those are tricky questions. And so anyway, we assembled an amazing group of amazing team, and we built this curriculum and built this program. We were partnered with multiple universities, and we actually implemented. So our course it ended up being taught as an accredited course at these
wow.
partner universities, a year-long course, and then students would get credit for it. And then we would do this sort of global talent search for the best and brightest Arab diaspora. So we wanted folks who had ties to the region, who were ideally bilingual in both Arabic and English. And so we had people from all over. We had Arab Americans, we had Arab Europeans, we had people from Dubai, we had lots of Jordanians, Palestinians, etc. So it was an amazing group, and they were our teachers. So they would actually serve as visiting professors or lecturers and teach our curriculum to these students, inspiring them to become innovators and entrepreneurs.
That's so cool. And what a great foundation for what you're doing now. So your website is called Brain by Design. And I love that name. And because we can design, we have neuroplasticity, we have all sorts of ways that we can change our behavior and the way our brain functions and all that, which is very, very exciting stuff. But tell me about your current website and you have a program, but there's also the website. So tell me a little bit about both those things.
Yeah, so Brain by Design, when we came back from Jordan in the summer of 2015, first of all, we were actually really burned out. You know, we'd been pushing hard and
Mm.
um, in tons of pressure, right? Anybody who's ever built anything knows how much pressure there is. And we had funders and we had all these stakeholders that were part of us. And so we came home in the summer of 2015 and we didn't really know what we were going to do,
Yeah.
actually. And I just sort of was listening, trying to listen to my intrinsic interests and see where those took me. And I, maybe not surprisingly, sort of started reading again all the latest research and science around motivation, willpower, habit formation, mindfulness, etc.
Love it.
And so I spent the better part of a year basically doing like research and development for what I'm now doing.
Okay.
Read every book I could get my hands on to get to get the state of the art, right? Like what? Because there's thousands of articles that come out in science journals in my field every single
Yeah.
month. So it grows so fast that to
Yeah.
stay up with it is a real feat. And so I got
Oh, hold on there
Brain by
for
Design.
good. Sorry, you just froze just for a second. You got Brain by Design.
I didn't realize I would build something called Brain by Design, but it just sort of starts growing up organically, right? I started doing a little presentation here, I started doing a talk here, and then I started realizing, wow, I've got so much content.
Yeah.
You start reading and reading and reading. You fill your mind with so many good ideas that slowly you start putting those ideas together in interesting ways, and then you realize you can start presenting those and helping others learn in a maybe quicker and more digestible format what that same thing you had learned was. So the course, so that's Brain by Design, and then the course I teach is now fully fleshed out. It's a 12-week course on the science of productivity, the science of habits, and the science of happiness.
And I love that because anybody can take it. And I think your big claim to fame is you've done such a stupendous job of taking the academia of psychology and filtering it down so the rest of us mugs can understand how to apply this in our life. And I was listening to you on another interview, and it was a lot about like, you know, it's first of all, it wasn't there. Then it was there in on the academic level and in the peer reviewed journals and all of that. But nobody's ever done a great job of bringing it to me and my neighbor and anyone else in any profession, and not even just entrepreneurs, but regular folks ready to kind of up their happiness game, their productivity game, can take this course and learn so much in such a short amount of time. And so I love that. But let's get
it's not the thing to remember is that the knowledge itself, the science itself, is finally super accessible, right? You can check these, like every book that I read in that year when I came home from the Middle East, you can pretty much check every one of those out from your local library.
oh wow.
And so it's not like dense academic texts. These are books that are written for a wide audience. They're grounded in all the best science. There's been an explosion in this type of book. I call it the Barnes and Noble book, right? They're meant for a wide audience. So they're taking all that complex research, but they're actually distilling it and helping people understand it.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Welcome, Susan. Okay, so let's get into some of the guts of this whole thing because I want to learn about productivity, dude. I've got stuff to do, okay, and I want to get it done fast.
Love it. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that we're talking about productivity, and you have talked about before how some of the big names, Steve Jobs, CEOs of LinkedIn, different like really kind of important people are doing some interesting things with their productivity and in order to make themselves more productive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you bet. You know, one of the most interesting examples of this is the CEO of LinkedIn. His name's Jeff Weiner, and he does this. He has this really, I think, surprising, kind of counterintuitive way that he schedules his time. So he gets into the office every day. By the way, he calls this his most important productivity tool. And
Wow.
you'll see why that strikes you as bizarre once I describe what he does. But he takes a 2-hour block he divides it into 30-minute chunks, and then he inserts those chunks throughout, like spread out throughout his day. So basically, he takes 4 30-minute breaks.
And
And
so
in
those
that,
30-minute chunks are meant to be breaks. Like
they're meant
he's
to be
not doing anything.
breaks. He's not doing anything. He schedules nothing. He wrote an article on this called The Importance of Scheduling Nothing.
Wow.
And what he uses it for is not only buffer time, but he uses it as thinking time. He uses it as reflection time.
Wow.
Right? He goes for a walk. He takes a nap. He gathers his thoughts. He sort of tries to process and see what the nugget was from that meeting they just had, or what the
Interesting.
essence of the problem was, or whatever. But he just allows his mind to basically wander for 30
Wow.
minutes. This is what we usually think of as daydreaming, actually.
Yeah. And which is in schools frowned upon, and don't look out the window and stop being so distracted.
That's
And
right.
in corporate, if somebody walks by your door and you got your feet up on your desk and you got your hands back and you're looking up at the ceiling, you're a freeloader. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
so isn't that great? And so I know there's science behind that. And so what is it that's happening? You've described this as kind of a light switch thing before, and I'm not sure how to, could you go into that a little bit? Because that seems to relate to this.
Yeah, you bet. So your brain, we think of productivity as this thing that turns on and off like a light switch. So if I'm behind my computer, if I'm at my desk, I'm writing emails, then we mistake, we measure basically the wrong thing. So we measure time in and equate that with productivity out. So it's like if I'm at my computer, productive because I'm working.
Yeah.
Right? And we just assume that when we're in this focused mode, that's basically the only way to get work done. And then again, we leave the office, we just assume our brains turn off, or at least the productive part, like the getting tasks done part.
Yeah.
We just assume we're not getting much else done. Well, turns out that's not the right analogy. It's not on and off switch. What you want to do is think of it like a light switch, but you want to turn it sideways.
Huh.
What your brain does is it switches between 2 different modes. It actually never turns off, not even when you sleep.
Interesting.
And your brain is highly active when you sleep. It's doing different functions than when you're awake.
Okay.
But in terms of the energy output and what it's actually doing, it's really restoring your mental battery. It's recharging that battery. So think about it this way: when you're in what psychologists call this executive mode,
Okay.
or stay on task mode. So stay on task mode is basically anytime you're focusing, you're directing your attention at something. You're looking at an email. You're concentrating. You're focusing. It takes mental effort.
Yeah.
And usually when we're working, we're in this mode.
Yes.
Right? We're not allowing our minds to wander. What we're doing is trying to do the opposite. We're trying to actually direct them towards some project or an email or a conversation or listening to a meeting or whatever that looks like. That's executive mode. So that drains your mental resources. It's exhausting. It's very tiring for the brain. What you do when you walk away from the desk and go for a walk,
Yeah.
you basically, again, your brain doesn't turn off. It switches into a different mode, and that mode I like to call creative, a creative mode, or Scott Barry Kaufman at University of Pennsylvania calls this imagination mode.
Okay.
Sometimes in the research they call it mind wandering mode, and pretty much what happens is these parts of your brain right behind your forehead, which are the attention parts of your brain. That's what you're paying attention with. They go quiet when you go into creativity mode. But this whole area, and it's kind of deeper inside of your brain, called the default mode network, lights up.
Oh, wow.
Lights up. And this is where So what happens, what psychologists are starting to realize is as your mind is wandering, it feels totally random. I mean, think about like taking a shower. What does your mind do? You know, it thinks about that avocado you ate for breakfast, and then you're thinking about that store, that high-end grocery store that you bought it at and you paid way too much money. And then you're reminded from that you met some friend there who recommended a book that you haven't picked up at Barnes and Noble. And then that book reminds you of a podcast. You're just like wandering, right?
Yeah.
So we've never really known until now what's going on when we're in that mode, but it's not so as random as you think. If you can figure out basically what you're working on, right? If you've got a clear goal or a clear problem that you've defined when you were in executive mode,
Mm-hmm.
or sort of concentration mode, like maybe you're doing this with a team or of people, and you're trying to solve some problem and you're talking it through. You know what the problem is, or you know what the goal is. There's some clarity around that. What
Yeah.
you want to do at that point is actually walk away from the problem.
Huh.
And it's not that your mind is randomly wandering. It's actually trying to do deep problem solving. So that default mode network I talked about, what it's actually doing is problem solving in a totally different way than problem solving with executive mode.
Interesting. Well, is that why, I always tell people I get my absolute best ideas when I'm exercising, when I'm out for a walk, when I'm inline skating. And I know some people get their best ideas when they're in the shower.
That's right.
Is that because you're stringing together all these seemingly random thoughts, and it's actually a process of problem solving?
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. Your brain wants to solve the problems and challenges you put in front of it.
Okay.
All you need to do is open up space to allow it to do that.
And that's
opening up space is what we don't do.
right.
Right. When we don't work, think of the way a regular workday looks. We work for 8 to 10 hours straight.
Yeah.
And in the name of productivity, we're working at our computers all day long, focusing. We wear our hustle like a badge of honor.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
But what we should be doing is actually more like what the CEO of LinkedIn does. We should be sprinting for an hour and a half, and then taking a break for 30 minutes, sprinting for another hour and a half, taking a break for an hour, taking a break for 30 minutes.
That's interesting, because that whole concept, like you say, the badge of honor, it's like busy just somehow makes you more important than the person you're talking to, right? I'm so busy, I don't have time for that. And it's such a cultural thing. And I'm glad to see that you and other experts out there are starting to go, ooh, no, this is not good. Because I imagine, fatiguing your brain to that degree all the time cannot be good for us, right?
It basically shuts off your neuroplasticity. So if you stress, one of the first things stress does when you have an elevated cortisol response in your body, or your fight or flight, sometimes people talk about it as like fight or flight dominant, or that you're in an elevated or stressful state for most of your day.
Yeah.
If that's happening to you, if you're not relaxing back down, your brain is not that it loses its ability to learn, but it's very, very low. Because neuroplasticity works. Michael McKerzinek, very, very famous neuroplastician, talks about this as brain neuroplasticity switches on and off. So either your brain is in a highly sensitive, highly changeable state, a learning state. But when stress comes in, it actually kicks off those switches, and your neurons can't actually grow new connections, which is what ends up being learning and memory and knowledge and experience. That's how we change. That's how we grow and become better people.
Yeah, I don't know. You'll have to tell me if this is related. But when I'm stressed or have anxiety, my memory just goes my short term, I recall, all of that just seems to be so affected. And it's so interesting to see how stress affects so many different components of the brain. And right. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but I definitely I can't even recall a name. It's pretty bad.
or you're trying to get to an appointment at time, you're running out the door and you're like, where did I put my keys? And then you forget your
Yes.
lunch and it feels like chaos up there, right?
Yes. Yeah, it
Yeah, that's
does.
because your body's full of stress. And the first thing your brain does when stress enters your body is it shuts down the problem solving part of your brain. It basically goes offline. And so you're
Yeah,
not thinking rationally, you're not thinking linearly. You can't think clearly.
that makes total
Feels like brain
sense.
fog. Yeah,
I don't like brain fog. I don't like it.
not either.
Okay, so we
Totally.
talked about the light switch theory, and you've got a couple technical analogies. Not, I guess a light switch isn't super technical, but you've also got a
Yeah,
cell phone analogy, and I would love for you to
sure.
share that with everybody. So can you describe that for me?
We basically like ignore our brains
We
and
do.
then just hope that they're going to be there for us when we need them,
That's very
right?
true.
We've gotten collectively a little bit better at not ignoring our bodies as much. So we exercise, we're trying to eat better. But when it comes to our brains, we just don't think about them that much, quite frankly. And so sometimes I think of your brain as I'm going to use another analogy here. It's like a system that tends toward chaos.
Okay.
So think about your house. If you don't clean your house somewhat regularly, like if you're not doing the dishes at least every other day, it's getting out of control really quickly,
For
right?
sure.
And laundry at least every 2 weeks, but probably once, right? You get what I
Yeah.
mean? And it starts getting, and if you have kids, like if you just let the house go and you don't pick up, clean up, it's a system that tends toward chaos, toward
Yeah.
disorganization, toward overwhelm. And the brain is exactly the same. So if you don't care for it, if you don't invest in it, if you don't recharge it, it tends toward brain fog and mental chaos.
Interesting. Hmm.
Because it's just a system like any other system. It's like the law of entropy, right? If you don't do inputs into it that keep it calm, centered, happy, connected, in tune with your body, you just kind of lose all those things.
Hmm.
So the question then becomes, well, what does it mean to do inputs into my brain? How do I recharge my brain? How do I invest in my mental resources or assets the way I would exercise? What's the equivalent of mental exercise, right? Well, there's a lot of different activities that recharge the brain. And this comes back to the battery analogy, because your brain is like your cell phone battery, right? The more you use it, the more you're in that executive mode that I talked about. What you're
Yeah.
doing is you're draining that mental battery.
Hmm.
It's not a bad thing. You just got to know when you're concentrating, when you're focusing your attention on something, like most of us do for a good portion of our day. This is why we get hangry, by the way, at 5 p.m. We're hungry, but we're also mentally exhausted, and we have no ability to control our emotions because we have no impulse control
Yeah.
left, because our literally our like mental battery is exhausted. We're at 2%, and we're like barking at the people we love when really we don't want to be that version of ourselves, right?
Right.
Um, it's the same thing with why it's so much harder to resist a brownie late at night,
That
or
makes
or surf,
sense.
so, surf social media. It's so much harder to resist clicking next on Netflix when it's 11 p.m. than when it's 10 in the morning.
Yeah. So I think between you and then you and I share a love for it's BJ Fogg, right? Is that his
Yeah,
name?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
And he's the habit guy. And I think I got this from both of you. So what you're describing is decision fatigue. Is that we have a certain allotment of decisions we can make in a day. And if we're in executive mode for too much of that and just constant
Yeah,
and I think one thing that you told me was like talk about when people take breaks,
yeah.
what they choose to do and how that doesn't necessarily help.
Yeah, so again, and this is again back to sort of this question of how do we invest in our brains? How do we rejuvenate them? How do we restore them? It's doing the equivalent of cleaning the house, right? Um, what most of us do when we crave a break is we go straight for our phones,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, if you go to any restaurant and look around, what do you see in a
Yep.
line? If it's like a big line, 80% of people got their device out, right? And
Yeah.
again, there's nothing inherently bad about that, but it's not actually restoring their mental energy, which is what it's fun. It's actually pleasurable. That's why we do it. We actually really like it. It spikes our dopamine reward system in our brain. That's why we feel so connected. And so we feel that impulse so strongly. It's a dopamine response. So there's different parts of your brains that want different things. Your brain is more like
Yeah.
a team of rivals, okay? So your brain, think of it this way, your brain is really good at demanding a break and feeling that urge to like, oh, I just want an easy distraction. It's sort of like reaching for a brownie. Your body's hungry.
Yeah.
It's not so good at telling you what's going to actually be good for it.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing with your brain. It gets hungry for a break, but it's not very good at telling you what kind of a break is actually going to restore and recharge that mental battery. So the list of things that do recharge there's a lot of them, but basically it comes down to things like going for a walk, anything physical, exercise, something more intense like running, yoga,
Yep.
stretching. So those are all sort of moving your body kinds of things.
Yeah.
But then you've got all these other things like play, like rolling around on the carpet with kids and sort of, being goofy and playful, those positive emotions.
That's a huge one. Yeah.
And it's not playing with kids. It's not like trying to have fun in a parking lot. When you drag kids around from errand to errand to errand, that's when kids drain your battery because you've got to be so vigilant about their safety.
Yes.
Right? It's when it's safe and you don't have to worry about. You're going into a relaxed state.
Yeah.
So anything that relaxes you, anything that feels fun or playful, meditation is probably one of the very biggest ones. Taking a nap.
My favorite.
Right?
Yeah.
Taking a nap is one of the biggest taboos, I think, in our culture, especially during the workday.
Yeah.
But if you look at Winston Churchill, what he would do, even during the height of World War II, he would take at least an hour and a half to 2 hour nap in the early afternoon, like again, right after lunch.
That's so awesome.
So why would he do this? He had so much pressure, so many people asking so many things. It's a crazy moment in history. And yet he would literally get in his pajamas. He would just like straight up close the and it was just what he did. And
I love it.
That was key to him being at peak performance when he went back to it.
Yeah. As a chiropractor, James, I chose to work insanely long days. I'd get to work around 5 and I wouldn't leave until 6 or 7, but I only worked 3 of those. And I took a nap every day at work. And it's so funny because I came in on a birthday once, on my birthday, and they had bought a yoga mat that they had strapped to my door that I could peel off and put on my floor. And they bought me pillows. But you're absolutely right. Like seeing that second half of the day patience, I needed to be refueled. And the only way I could find to do it on those long days was a power nap. And I love what you're saying about that, is to be really clear on what regenerates this energy here and what depletes it, and being very cautious about how you're choosing to spend your break time.
There's basically 4 things that the more of these things you have, the more restorative something is. So 1 is relaxation. Does it relax you?
Okay.
Number 2 is it a choice? Are you choosing the activity you're doing? So there's an element of whether you're being forced to do something or whether you want to do it. Another one is psychological distance. So the further you get away from that work activity or whatever you're doing. So another way of thinking this is you don't want to bring your phone with you on that walk.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna encourage you to, you're gonna feel it in your pocket and you're gonna want to check it.
Yeah.
And that's mental pressure, and that's what shuts down creativity mode. Then you're back in executive mode.
I love it.
And then the last one is growth. So anything that's like a challenge. So one of the mind wandering things is like doodling or doing like a hobby or something you really like learning a new instrument or whatever that is, right? Something that allows you to get better at something. So it's relaxation, choice, like did I choose it?
Yeah.
Psychological distance, how far away are you from that hard thing you were just doing? And mastery or growth, like are you getting better at something? All of those things, the more of those things you have in an activity, the more restorative it is for you.
Oh, I love that. And that's so practical. Like I can take that to the bank. And I like, I think inherently we know getting out for a walk is better than sitting next to your computer and scarfing down your lunch. But to know that that we are actually regenerating brain function, we are refilling that cell phone battery. There's real benefit to it. There's real functionality to it. I love that. It's super helpful.
Everything I'm saying, even those 4 things, are based on the absolute best research out there. This is really, really good science. You mentioned getting out in the sun. Yeah, one of the things that sun on your skin does is it upticks a neurochemical called serotonin, which is a feel-good, positive chemical in our brains. So there's all these things that we often don't do.
Yeah.
But that's what it's actually doing. It's actually restoring and replenishing all those neurotransmitters or neurochemicals that you need to then go back, do that hard thing. It's not that we don't want to be in executive mode. We just want to make sure we have a full battery when we are in executive mode. That is
so perfect. And if nothing else from this talk today, if it gives viewers permission to say, no, I need to go out for a walk. I need to take that break. I need to do that stretching for 20 minutes, even though I think, so long we're like, no, you got to push through to the end. But I think you would say we're not as productive when,
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Again, this is where your brain will mislead you. It's not, that assumption, time in equals productivity out, it runs so deep that it's actually a flawed assumption. The better, it's not go, go, go. The formula for success isn't go, go, go. It's go, recharge, go, recharge, go, recharge.
So what does that look like? Okay, so I work from home now, and I usually start by about 7:30 or 8. And so what are your recommendations for breaks? And I know what to do for breaks now. You've told me that, but how do I pepper those through my day?
Yeah, so the first thing to know is you want to just figure out a way that works for you. There's no kind of one size fits all answer here. And there's not one size fits all answer for the whole length of your day. I actually take different lengths of breaks in my morning versus my afternoon. But it ends up being about 25% of your workday. So when you look at all the research, it kind of aligns with so Jeff Weiner, he probably knows this research. I wouldn't be surprised. But his taking 2 hours out of an 8-hour workday is about accurate.
Yeah, very intentional, obviously.
Very intentional, and you're going to waste that time anyways. So the best research out there has shown that we waste at least 25% of our working hours on just frittering away, talking to the water cooler, calling on a personal appointment, whatever that is. So you want to reclaim that. You want to actually recharge your mental battery, and you want to have you want to unlock your creative brain during that time.
Yeah.
Right? You want to go for that walk, not take your iPhone, but take a notepad and a pen.
Yes.
To capture those ideas when they happen. You don't want to wait to get back to capture those ideas, because creativity is a process of having lots of little micro insights over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And that's when you're going to have them, is when your mind is wandering. So there's lots of ways to do this. So in the morning, I try to follow something called the 90-30 principle. I call it the 90-30 principle. So 90 minutes on, 30 minutes off. This is roughly what Jeff Weiner does at LinkedIn. That's when I'm doing my deep work. So you can't really concentrate for longer than about 90 minutes at a stretch.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense.
Maybe 2 hours if you're really pushing the outer edge of that. Before your brain is going to crave a break, it's going to demand that you, again, what you'll want to do is surf the internet. You want to surf social media, but you want to feel that urge, see it, and step away from the computer.
Yeah, for sure.
Step away from the desk and walk out the door. That's all you got to do. And from there, and the urge will die down for that empty calorie brain candy, which is, oftentimes what the internet can feel like. So I do 90-30 in the morning when I'm doing my deep work. And then in the afternoon, I often use something called the Pomodoro method, which is 25-5. So 25 on, or executive mode, 5 for a quick break. 25-5, 25-5, 4 times. 25-5, 25-5, 25-5, 25. And then the last break is actually a 20-minute break. So it's 25-5, 4 times, and then you take a bigger break at the end of that. So again, you add up all that math, and it ends up equaling about 25% of your time.
Yeah, I love that. And I love there's sort of different, I think what you're alluding to is that for many, and we can even go back and look at some of the great artists and authors and all of that, we do know that productivity time is often really good in the mornings right? Can you tell me about, like, you were telling me something about, there were some authors and some painters and different artists all throughout time who had a
Yeah.
pretty similar layout to their day.
Yeah. So when you look, so there's this wonderful book called How Artists, Daily Rituals, and then the subtitle's How Artists Work. I think it's the author is Mason Curry. That outlines artists, innovators, scientists, Nobel Prize winners, all these folks who've contributed at really high levels to society. Just their daily rituals. What do they go? When do they have their coffee? When do they go eat their
Yeah.
breakfast? When do they do all these things? And there's these fascinating patterns as you read through it. And one of the best ones is that most people do their hardest work in the morning.
Hmm.
So a lot of them are writers. So writing is a generative, it's a creative activity. It's highly complex. And it takes tons of, it's like a slog, right? You talk to any
Yeah.
writer and it's hard work,
Yeah.
right? And so you want the best mental energy to be dedicated to that kind of generative, creative, looking at a blank page. How do I actually come up with something kind of work?
Now, and
And when you,
can I ask,
yeah.
does that have a lot to do with the fact that your battery is full, and so you have like the most potential at that time, and then just as that day goes on, it's doing this, this, this. Is that why most people are most productive in the morning, or most effective in the morning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's also one other dimension, which is you'll find that they'll do sort of we call them creatives because it feels like they do kind of bizarre things. They have these reputations for having these kind of bizarre rituals and things. But what they're actually doing, they're very strategic. They're very smart about this. They're eliminating distractions. They're eliminating distraction.
Huh.
So Carl Jung, you look at any writer, any author, Stephen King, they all do this. They even build houses, a little teeny cottage away from their house, like in their same property, and they go to that cottage, and that's their writing space. So there's literally zero interruptions.
Interesting.
So no distractions, and a lot of them no internet, nothing, right? Like literally nothing. You don't want the temptation there.
Yeah.
So no distractions, and then they have that high mental battery, and the combination of those things is what allows them to enter into peak states of mental performance. And Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, another work called this flow. So this is when you get into the zone, right? We call it the zone. We have all these words for it, where time passes. The nature of time. You get so absorbed
Yeah.
in the task that you're working on that you don't even you're completely you're completely 100% with it. To get into those states, you need a high mental battery, and you need what we
No
call flow,
distractions.
or no distractions.
I know for me, I'm an amateur writer, but when I'm writing and I've just got that perfect sentence and it's coming out, and if my husband says, "Head," it's gone. It's just gone. And
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah,
and
come back. Where'd you
yeah, come
go?
back.
Where'd
And
you go?
so I can totally resonate with that. And when I'm in like idea mode, when I'm in entrepreneurial mode and I'm starting up something, a project, I completely get that no distraction. But I think that also translates to any type of work we're doing. The less distractions we have, clearly, the more functional our brain's going to be able to operate, right?
Yeah, your brain is just highly sensitive to distraction. Especially noise. So your brain interprets two things as emergencies. One is pain, and it will stop whatever it's doing and try to orient toward the
Huh.
pain. The other, psychologists call this an orienting response. So anytime you hear a loud noise, or even again, what do our cell phones do? They beep, they ping, they basically are like a sometimes one of the best analogies I heard was like a child. They're like a child who's really demanding, right?
Yeah.
Like just constantly pulling it for our attention.
Yes.
And what you want to do, I actually keep my phone on. I hit the do not disturb, the moon on an iPhone, and then I put people on my favorites list that will get through that moon, like
Yeah.
my preschool, my parents, my wife, etc. That I know need to get a hold of me, but everybody else, I never get disrupted by those ping, ping, pings,
It's so great. Turn off
which
all
is
your
what.
notifications and all that. And if you have that moon on, you're not getting any notifications anyway. So that's a really practical idea for people.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's great. Oh gosh, we are getting some serious meat here, buddy.
Good.
This is awesome.
Good.
Okay, I want you to tell me a little bit about the Brain in Mind program. I'm going to just put the up there so people can just see exactly what I'm saying, because it's funny, when I was hearing you on a different podcast, he was saying brain in mind so fast, it almost sounded like one whole word. I'm like, what is he saying? so, so it's brain in mind, people. That's what this is. And so can you tell me a little bit more about the program? And then we're going to talk about how you are going to give us all a little something today, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, so Brain in Mind is a 12-week course. Everything that we're talking about, I go into at great length and depth. But what I've really done is tried to make these concepts understandable, accessible,
Yes.
practically relevant. So it's like, okay, that's really interesting, but like, how do I use that with my 4-year-old?
Yeah. I
Or how
love
do I use
that.
that when I'm sitting down at my computer and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I really do want to just surf YouTube or whatever?
Yeah.
Or how do I use this in a meeting with my company? Like when it's granular, when it's application, I've really tried to create the exercises and things in the course to actually get that knowledge out of your head and into your behavior.
I love it.
Right. So again, it's on the science and the application of productivity, science of productivity, habits, and happiness.
Love it. And
Turns
those,
out,
yeah, those, no, go ahead.
no. They're just you got it.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're all,
they're tightly they're like you'll find, right. One of the most fascinating findings when it comes to happiness, for example, is that we often think that success leads to happiness. That's why we do what we do for a lot of our lives, right?
yeah.
Sean Achor and others have shown and researched and talked a lot about the arrows going the other way around. That when you look at the science, what you find is that people who invest in their happiness,
Yeah.
they invest in strategies like becoming more grateful, having habits of gratitude, right? And these other
Yeah.
things that we know just explode our happiness levels and positive emotions. When they focus on habitizing those parts of their lives, what they find is that they get better jobs, they have deeper connections in their relationships, they have more financial success.
Yeah. I'll put a link to
Happiness
that.
drives success. Yeah.
I'll put a link to Sean's TED Talk. It literally is my favorite TED Talk of all time. I've probably watched it 100 times. It's called something to I can't even remember what the title is of it right now, but it's so good and he is so
Google, yeah,
funny.
Sean Achor.
Yeah,
Easy to
and
show.
that stuff is powerful stuff. Understanding that, okay, when I get that job, I'm going to be happy. When I meet that woman, I'm going to be happy. When it's the other way around. It's when you invest in happiness, the woman, the job, the money, all of that comes to you.
It just comes to you.
Yeah, it's super powerful. Another thing that you said recently was that it really hit me was you don't get motivated to get moving. You get moving to get motivated.
Yeah.
That movement, that whole concept of moving forward and motivation. Like I love that too, how your brain works with that kind of concept. It's starting. I have clients who really have a hard time starting. They're like, well, I'm just not motivated. It's like, no, if you start, you actually will become motivated to make the diet change. If you just make those first little few steps, right?
That's exactly right. So yeah, motivation often follows action.
Yes.
So you take action first.
Yeah.
So it's 6 a.m. The alarm goes off. It's cold. You're kind of feeling crappy. You didn't have a good night of sleep. You and your exerciser clothes are staring at you on the floor right there, right? You just swing your legs over the bed and you just do it anyways. And it gets pretty painful, but I guarantee you 5 to 10 minutes into that walk or jog around the block, you're going to feel like a different person. So motivation follows action instead of
exactly. I love
pursuing.
that. So I love the productivity stuff. Let's just do a quick recap for some of those Erin, Erica, Susan folks that have joined us a little later. We talked about how powerful these breaks are and how these breaks have to be very particular. They have to be regenerating, not continuing to drain that cell phone battery, right, of our brains. And so those activities again were, can I try to remember?
Absolutely.
So walk, movement, walk, yoga, stretching, any kind of movement, anything that's fun and playful. anything that is sort of is growth, like a hobby or something that is that you're growing at, you're learning and you enjoy.
Yes.
And rest.
Yep.
Did I miss?
Yes. Naps.
Naps.
No, you didn't miss anything. Meditation.
Meditation.
Is another big one. So I use an app called Headspace to meditate, but there's a lot of great ones out there. Headspace
Yeah,
is my
that's
favorite.
that's the one I recommend too. It's a great Headspace. It's a really great meditation app. I only just learned about it, so I'm still trying it out myself, and so that's great that you recommend it as well.
Yeah,
Being
it's fantastic.
yeah, that's great. So I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about if they text, and I just discovered this cool thing. Like, isn't that just the best? Look at that. Do I have that number right? 66866?
That is correct.
Okay, good. So if you guys want to text 66866, the word brain, we've got some gifts for you today. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an infographic of the 90-30 rule, right? So it's easier to break it down and easier to understand it. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Infographic of the 90-30, and then this is super generous, is you are going to give away 2 segments of your online class. People can kind of get a taste, a flavor of what you do and what this is about. And if they want to continue, they can. If they want to cancel after 2 segments, they can do that too and just take that information. And I am going to do that myself. I'm very excited about that. So thank you for that. And
Yeah,
I'll post that in the comments and I'll repost up above us as well. But great information. James, is there anything that we've talking about that we did not talk about? I think we covered.
No, I think we covered it. Just so people know, again, it's BRAIN, BRAIN, to 66866. And what will happen is it will ask you, you'll find a way to communicate with you. And if you decide to do it,
yep.
Those first 2 sessions, again, it's just like Amazon. So if you've ever done Amazon Prime, right? You have, or
James, who hasn't done Amazon Prime? Everybody's done Amazon Prime.
You get to try it before you buy it, right?
Perfect.
So it's a great opportunity, and then you'll get a bit deeper flavor for the course before you decide.
I love it. And I know some of the other content that's in the course. It's extremely powerful. It's applicable to everyone. So who's ever watching, whether you're in business, whether you work from home, or you are stay-at-home CEO of your own family, all of this information is very, very powerful and useful to your children, to you, to your partner. So do take advantage of James's very generous offer today. I do appreciate that very much. Absolutely. And I want to just also repeat how honored I am that James is going to be a part of the Change Cave. He's going to be doing a presentation, and remember that launches March 15th. And we are going to do a great little video from James on some additional content that we didn't cover today. And I'm really looking forward to that as well. It'll be really great. Yeah, it'll be good. Well, thank you so much for joining me, James. Stay on the line after we end the broadcast, and we will see everybody in the comments. Make sure you guys leave your questions below, because both James and I will be looking at those. And please share this to anyone who you think should be listening to this. Share it to your page, to your personal page as well, and help us get some of this messaging out about the wellness aspect of brain health. It's absolutely imperative. So thank you, James. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.